Good morning. Good morning. A very warm welcome to all of you today. For those of you who are visiting, my name is Father Kevin Huber, and with our parish community, we're very, very happy to have you with us today. In a special way, I want to welcome our Girl Scouts and I knew I was going to get them all wrong, our juniors and our brownies who are here today to celebrate Girl Scout Sunday, and their leaders as well. We're very, very happy to have you with us today. So I brought something with you today that I want to share with you. I have to tell you that I'm not particularly excited about it, but I thought it was important to bring it. I also would mention to you that probably most of you here in this church today wouldn't want anything to do with what's in here. But I have to tell you that I'm glad I got it. I'm glad I have this because it reminds me of something very, very important. Do you know what it is? You think you know, Lily? What do you think it is? What's that? It's not a ticket, my friend. No, it's not. Anybody else? What do you think, Luke?
A candle.
It's not a candle. I'm sorry. Monsignor Pazeric, talk to me.
A Bible.
It is not a Bible either, though it's a great guess. Are you ready? Okay, one more. Kylie, what do you think?
Speeding ticket.
It is not a speeding ticket. No, my friend, you're not all too far from the truth. It is, in fact, a speeding warning. I'm not proud of this. Steve and I, last Wednesday, were on the way to Plymouth, Indiana for our little staff retreat and development time. And we were running a little bit behind. And so I was on 421 and I'm kind of cruising through Westville. And then all of a sudden there's this big pickup truck with this massive horse trailer on the back of the car, or on the back of the truck. And we're puttering along and I'm like, this is just out of control. I gotta pass it. So I turn on my turn signal and I accelerate my speedy car. And I pass in front of the truck. And there's nothing in front of me except open road. And so I accelerate a little bit more. And then all of a sudden, I saw, before it was too late, there was this big white police car sitting there on the right side of the road. And sure enough, as soon as I saw it, I saw the lights go on. I thought, this ain't gonna be good. So I pulled my car over to the side of the road, and I just said, Steve, open my glove compartment and get the registration, though I shouldn't be telling you that I know how to do this. And I pulled out my driver's license, and I just waited for the police officer to come to the car. So I rolled my window down, and I said, hello, officer. And he said, hello, can I have your registration and your driver's license? And I said, sure, and I gave him a smile. And he said, you know how fast you were going? And I said, no, I have no idea. He said, you were doing 60 and a 40. And I said, oh, I didn't realize it. He said, well, you know what? I'm going to give you a warning. And then I did what any good, self-respecting person would do. I said, are you sure you don't want to give me a ticket? Steve. And he said, so the officer walks away, and Steve looks at me and says, rule number 1, never ask for a ticket. Now, I realize that most of you here in church, if you were in that particular situation, you would have thanked the officer kindly and just let him offer you the warning, which is reasonable. I think it's absolutely reasonable. But I told Steve, I said, Steve, we have to own what we do. We have to realize that there are consequences for our decisions and our actions. We may not like the consequences, but the reality is that we have to embrace them because we've made those choices. That's exactly what Jesus is talking about in the gospel reading today. Please hear this, that we are now at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus has spent a lot of time with his disciples giving them some very, very important information, not just to be his disciples, but for living their lives. He's talked to them about the Beatitudes. He's interpreted the scriptures, or he's interpreted the commandments for them. And today, he calls them to accountability. And notice what he says. Anyone who listens to my words and acts on them is like the man who built his house on solid rock. The winds came, and the winds were blowing, and the rains came and buffeted the house, and yet it stayed because it was built on solid rock. But the one who hears the words but does not act on them is like the man who built his house on sandy ground. The winds came, the winds blew, and the rains came and buffeted the house, and it collapsed because it had been built on sand. Jesus is making this very, very important point, is that it's not enough just for us to listen, but we also have to act. He's calling us to accountability. What's important for us to hear also is that as we begin chapter 8, as we leave the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is coming down the mountain with his apostles. And there's a great crowd that forms around him. And notice the very first thing that happens when Jesus comes down from this mountain is that he's approached by a leper. And the leper says to him, "If you will it, I can be made clean." And Jesus' response is almost predictable. "I do will it be made clean." Jesus is putting into practice everything that he taught his disciples while he was there on that mountain. Everything that he told them, he began to personify. He was holding himself accountable just like he would hold them accountable. But this is the part that you and I need to pay particular attention to. And that is, every Sunday, you and I come to church and we hear these scriptures proclaimed. Every week we come to church and we receive the same information, the same stories, the same lessons that the disciples did 2,000 years ago. Every time that you and I come to church, we receive the same Jesus and the Eucharistic sacrifice that our disciples did 2,000 years ago. The reality is that it is not enough for us to hear. It is not enough for us just to receive. We have to go out and we have to act. That is what's going to empower us to meet the challenges in our life. It's not enough for us just to listen to what Jesus has to say and then walk out the door. We've got to put into action what we ourselves have received. We have to be ambassadors for life. We need to be messengers of hope. We need to be witnesses to the glory to which God has called us. We need to be examples of forgiveness. We need to be sacrificial people. Those are all the things that our Lord has talked to us about. Those are all the things that our Lord has taught us. Those are all the ways in which our Lord has instructed us to live. And if we don't put them into practice, then know what's going to happen. We will approach the Lord after we leave this life, and we will call upon Him, and we'll say, "Lord, Lord, let us enter." And He won't know who we are. Unless we put into practice what we have received, we will not be able to meet the challenges here on earth. We will not experience the reign of God here on earth unless we put into practice what we receive Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. Our Lord is going to hold us accountable. We may not want to hear that, but that's the reality. And that's why the officer came back and he handed me this little piece of paper. And you're right, it was just a warning. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. And he explained it to me, and he told me everything that was on here. And I thanked him. I thanked the officer for doing his job. But more importantly, I thank the officer for this warning because it reminds me. It reminds me that I need to be attentive to what I read. I need to do what I read. I need to be attentive to how I live. And that's exactly what our Lord wants us to do. And we, my friends, have a tremendous grace that's going to begin in just 3 short days in the season of Lent. That when we begin the season of Lent on Ash Wednesday, we have 6 weeks where you and I can begin to ask ourselves, examine our lives and say, am I living the example that Jesus lived? Am I fulfilling in my life what our Lord teaches me? Am I doing what He's instructed me to do? Again, Lent is a reminder. It's a reminder of how we are to live. and what we are to do, so that we may share the glory that He has prepared for us.